have an idea for a video and I'll mention it to Tallene. But of course, she's not seeing what I'm seeing in my brain. I'll be recording, I'll set the camera up and I'm like, all right, go ahead. And then she'll do it and it'll be like completely different. And I'll be like, all right, what the hell was that? You know?
Welcome to the Jasmine Star Show, where we talk about business marketing. And today we are getting really granular, nerdy, and oh so fabulous about content. I couldn't be more excited to introduce to you Tallene and Sirak, brand new friends, podcast guests, and we're neighbors. What I wanted to do, and this is the goal and the intention of the podcast, is I deeply understand that creating content can be a struggle and it can also be an opportunity. It's just what label do we want to apply to it? And one of the things that I've been so impressed by Tallene and Sirak is their ability to say, yes, it's work, but it's an opportunity. And so what I want to do today is I actually wanted to get into the nitty-gritty about creating content. Now, what you're going to hear are two separate businesses. I actually don't know their approach. I know what is on the outside, and people can look at my content and they know what's on the outside, but people don't actually know how the sausage is made. So today we are going to be talking about granular components of creating content, what's similar, what's different, and then at the end of it, my goal is to be able to distill action items for listeners to take and say, listen, you might not be doing it in the same frequency, but can you do some things in your own way for your business to grow and market? So welcome to the show, welcome to the show. I'm happy you guys are here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
We're so excited.
We were mentioning earlier before the podcast started, but being on here is like full circle for us because when we first got started back in 2020, 2021, like your podcast was one of the very few we were listening to learn about business, content creation, everything. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you know, when I heard it, and so my reaction now is because that's the second time I'm hearing it. And so my first reaction was like, no, Tommy, are you serious? Because it was just so exciting because I look at, nobody would ever look at your content, your following, the size of what you guys have done and built and think that 2020, 2021 was the inception of it. And so this is a testament. And so let me just get through the braggadocious components of what it is they do. And then people who are watching and listening can figure out, hey, if it's resonant or not. So millions of followers on TikTok, hundreds of thousands on Instagram. Fine, but that would just be that they can create content. But what they have on the back end is a legitimate business supporting the PCOS community as well as an app. And so we're talking about memberships, we're talking about business, we're talking about content. And while we may or may not be touching on the components of it, what I want to talk about is the front end component of content and how it pushes for business growth. Because in a lot of circles that I run in, the biggest question is, it takes so much time, it takes so much energy, what is the direct ROI? And so I've never tried to convince anybody the importance of it. You guys somehow saw it and said, this is how we're going to be using it for the business. So tell me, business first, then content, or did you just start creating content that led to the business? What does that look like to set the stage for a lot of people who are getting introduced to you today?
It's definitely content first. Like it was not business first. It was absolutely content first, creating content that's relatable. I have PCOS myself and I've been able to reverse it. So I just wanted to help people figure out how to reverse it themselves. And then when we saw these amazing comments of people with their minds blown about like tips that I'm giving, I was just like, okay, well, we can roll with this and continue
So
helping.
when you start creating your content, you're not saying, oh, I'm going to do this for a community and for millions of followers. You're doing this because I have a problem.
Yes.
I have found a successful way to overcome it. You start sharing it. But what are you doing at this time? Like, what is your job? What does both of your lives look like? Because at this time, you guys are together, right?
Let's go back to the beginning.
Okay, so I was a registered dietitian and I had an office. I was doing one-on-one coaching for women with PCOS.
Okay.
So that was going really well and I was making social media content and I was getting more one-on-one clients and I was able to help people.
And I think at this point you had about like 10,000 followers. You were getting close to 10,000 followers on Instagram. And I wasn't working with her at the time. I was an engineer and Tanya was like, started the whole thing herself and had her own practice.
Yes. So once 2020, like the pandemic hit content creation started to become more popular, TikTok came around.
Yeah, TikTok came out right around that time. And then I was starting to help Tallene with filming because even though like I wasn't really involved, I would keep telling Tallene like video is king. We got to make more. You got to make more video content. You got to go live. You got to do like stories. And to be honest, if you remember, Tanya, you were a little bit like hesitant to go like to do a lot of stories or to do a lot of lives because it was very new at the time.
Exactly. It was new at the time. I was self-conscious. I didn't know what to show on stories or how to tell a story.
I have to pause.
Pause.
So Question number one, Sirak, what made you think like video is this, you have to do that? And then secondly, can we talk about what you were self-conscious about? Because before we get into logistics, I need people who are watching and listening to be like, where do I fall on this spectrum? And how probable is this for me to do what somebody else has done? So I'm just trying to set the stage.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think like content is king back then and still now, because like without content, like content is literally your free marketing. Like it's how you market to your audience.
As an engineer, what is making you say this? Because you're consuming the content as a consumer, or what?
Yeah, like I've always had a great way of like watching content and being able to connect to it and seeing like the in between, like what's so good about the content and what people like resonate from it. Yeah, and what I really thought, I've always thought this was give as much free content as possible, because I feel like a lot of people are afraid of like if you give too much content, people won't look at your website or your product, and I completely disagree with that. I think give as much free content as possible, and people will like trust you more and will be willing to try your membership or your supplements or etc. And that's like been our motto since day one: as much free content as possible.
That's funny because when I hear Sirak talk, I hear an engineer. Like he looked at something and said, what are the pieces and how does it work? And let me just reverse engineer. And I'm like, oh, very logical, highly. Okay,
Yes.
so you could see this from a strategy. I understand it. And even though I'm not, at the time, a creator of it, I can understand why it works. And he turns to you, he says, you have this ability, and then what comes up for you?
So he's like texting me from work. He's like, you need to post stories today.
Yeah, no stories today. How
You
come
need
there's no
to
stories
post
today?
stories.
Yes.
And like at this point, I'm creating a course. Like I'm listening to your podcast. I'm doing stuff, and I'm making like static posts. Back then, it wasn't video yet,
Yes.
so I'm like hiding behind the camera. I'm not showing my face as much on stories. I'm afraid to make videos. But then some of the pain point, like some of the things that I was scared of, was like, what are people gonna think? Like, what is my family gonna think? Or like, what are the people I know thinking of me behind the scenes? You know, are they judging me? I'm showing my house, maybe the things I'm cooking, they don't like it, or it's weird, or like maybe my hair doesn't look good today, or like all kinds of limiting beliefs to tell you that like I shouldn't post. But honestly, good thing I like overcame that, because everyone wants to see something relatable. Like people don't want the fake you, like putting on a show on stories. They just want you to be yourself. Like even if sometimes I post without makeup, I have dark circles around my eyes, like I'm Middle Eastern, like this is what it is. And people DM me and they're like, thanks for being like authentic. Like I have the same thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like I don't care. Kim K has dark circles too. Like I'm not going to be self-conscious. So it actually built my confidence and like encouraged me to be able to like put myself out there and help more people at the end of the day. Like people are being helped.
So action was the thing to help you overcome the insecurity.
Yeah.
Just doing it. Like,
Just do it.
Like how Nike says it, just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's
Just
the worst that
do
could
it.
happen?
It's hard, but just do it anyways and see what the positive results that come from it, and like let that feed you.
Okay, now let's make the jump, because somebody's like, well, maybe kind of sort of I buy what they're kind of sort of saying. You at the time you have a practice, you're doing one-on-one for PCOS, and then now we're in the pandemic. You're probably not meeting one-on-one with people so much, right? And so you begin to make more content to work on overcoming by taking action.
Right.
And then what in the content journey made a light bulb go off for you to say, okay, we can structure the business differently?
I think when TikTok came around, we were like, we need to change this up and start making videos. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Did you mean, like, business-wise?
Well, something must have happened for you to say, okay, I have a business that looks like this. And my partner is an engineer. And then, but no, I'm pretty sure TikTok really plays into this.
Yeah.
At what point do you take a step back and say, that business model no longer serves us? We're going to try to do something. Was that content forward, or was that like a response to, hey, we can't handle the volume now, so we have to change the business because of how effective the content was?
I would say not only did the pandemic make us go towards doing a membership, but also the price point, because a membership isn't as expensive as one-on-one coaching, and you can serve more people that way. And people can gain this knowledge that, you know, after a certain point, like you're kind of repeating yourself when you're one-on-one coaching. Of course, you're like giving curated advice to somebody, but you could also put it in a nice, beautiful, informative package and teach people in a more affordable way, like what you're doing. And then you help so many more people with PCOS.
I'm going to put a pin there, because something that you had said that was one of the things I found the most appealing about you is the level, because I would, before people come on the podcast, I would like to do a very deep dive if I don't know them personally. So we were introduced by way of a mutual friend. And then when we were chatting via email, you had said, oh, I saw you working out at the gym. And I was like, okay, so we must have been having similar orbits that have intersected, but then I go deep, way down the rabbit hole. And I think to myself, one of the things I found the most appealing, and I say this in the highest regard, is you guys are saying the consistent message, the consistent message, the consistent message. And so I think to myself, you had said, when I do my one-on-ones, it's a consistent message. So we could repackage this. And so I think to myself, okay, the very thing that changed the business model was the very thing that works effective on content. But we'll put a pin in that. Sirak, were you going to continue on that iteration from the business? Like at what point from engineer are you entering in the membership when she says, okay, we're changing?
I mean, it was because COVID happened, so we're spending a lot more time home. So I started helping Tallene with actual filming, and I started forcing her. I'm like, okay, we're gonna film today. We're gonna film some videos, and then they start going like more viral and more viral. We're talking about like millions of views, and then it comes to a certain point where like obviously the membership is growing. We're able to serve more people, give them a more affordable option because not everyone can afford thousands of dollars with one-on-one. So with the more affordable option and like the videos doing well, we looked at each other and said, okay, this business is growing. We're helping so many people. This community is growing. Let's go. We're going to go full force. Like we asked each other, like, how serious are we about working together? And at the point, we loved working together. We still do. And it was like a very clear decision. I'm going to quit my job as an engineer. It took me 10 years to become a nuclear engineer. But I basically said, I find this to be way more passionate, I'm way more into helping people versus like just doing boring stuff on the computer, which is what I found it to be. So quit my job and joined her full time. And that really just
what year?
Snowballed everything. 2021, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
It was
actually 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 6 months after the pandemic started, I quit my job as an engineer, like a stable job with everything. Cause again, it was way more fulfilling.
And then we were like, people must think we're crazy.
They did.
You're quitting your job in the middle of a pandemic to be a social media person. And back then it wasn't like this popular either. So people thought we were crazy.
Yeah. My brothers were like, are you sure about this? Like maybe just go
people
like
were
half-half.
calling to stop us. Like,
My coworkers were like, we'll always have a place for you here when you decide to come back. I was like, I'm not coming back. Like I never had a single, I had no doubt, like 0% doubt that we were going to make it full force. So went in all guns up, you know?
Okay. So we're at this point in the story, and we don't have to get into the business necessarily, although this podcast is about the business of business. But I want to focus a lot of our attention in the how. Yeah. What were you doing then when you first started? Because there's a lot of people on their journey who may not have a Sirak, right? They might not. So let's go back a little bit before, like, Tallene, you're making your own content. How often are you showing up then? And how long is it taking you? So right now, at the time of this recording, video is still queen.
Yeah.
It just is unrivaled. So as we think about that, let's go back to the version of Tallene who is stepping away from the still photos, being more in front of camera and on video, and you're doing it solo. Let's go to that person right now.
Okay.
How many pieces of content were you making at that time? How many times were you posting in a week? Forget me.
I was posting 3 times a day. I was doing static posts 3 times a day.
Oh, back then, right?
Back then.
Yes. So we're talking about early
not videos.
Okay.
Static posts 3 times a day.
Like 3 times a day. That was so much back then.
I would sit there and I would batch prepare them. I would sit hyper focused, batch preparing static posts.
How long was that? How long was a static post taking you to create?
It took me like 40 minutes per post.
Okay.
And I would sit there for like an entire Tuesday.
Okay.
Cranking them out.
Okay.
Every Tuesday.
Then video, and then Sirak's calling you or texting you from work and being like, get on video.
Yeah.
When you start making videos for stories and or TikTok, because TikTok predates when we started using Reels.
Yes.
So you guys got on and you guys were getting trained.
Yeah.
When you start doing stories and when you start doing TikToks, how long are they taking you to create a TikTok?
An hour each, maybe, minimum, right?
For a video?
For a video.
Sometimes faster, depending on like the.
So back in the day, right when she's first starting,
it was hard. The editing was weird. It was hard.
Yeah. So there's like a process. So initially, what we would basically just record a random TikTok every single day, and after doing that for a couple of weeks, a month, it was like very disorganized. It wasn't working out. So we decided, okay, we're gonna pick one day out of the week and film that day. To this day, that's still Wednesdays, which is supposed to be today, but we couldn't do it today.
So I'm throwing off your schedule. Thank you so much. I'm here for it. I don't care. I make no apologies. Yes. Okay. So at the time, how long were you creating your daily TikToks before you said, this is not going to work? Like, are we talking about a couple months? Are we talking about a couple weeks? Because what I want to do is I want people to be in the front row seat, to be like, yeah, I'm recording a TikTok a day, or I'm recording a reel a day, and it's just so disorganized.
Yeah.
How long did you guys
Before
hit
we
the
figured
point
it out.
where you said, okay, now we're gonna have to batch in some
No, I
capacity?
A month in,
remember.
maybe like a couple weeks to a month in, we're like, okay, this is not efficient.
This isn't working.
Yeah,
We
and then
were
at that point, we
freaking
literally
out.
made like, I would highly recommend this to everybody. Like, make an organized schedule for everything. Like Monday through Friday, each day should be a specific theme. Like Tuesdays are meeting days, Wednesdays are content filming days, and other days, you know, fill it in as like
Right.
Okay.
works for you. But that's what worked for us after then. And what really helped also is like organizing what you're gonna film, not just like going into it and being like, okay, what am I gonna film today? What are we filming today? And just trying to find some random ideas. Instead, what I would do back then is, one thing I highly recommend, you got to watch TikTok or Instagram or your preferred social platform all the time. Like, meaning go through content, like watch it, actually absorb it as the person who uses that platform. And then from doing that, you're gonna find content that resonates with you. I'm not talking about finding stuff and copying it. I'm talking about finding people you like people like Jasmine, who makes great content, but also finding people in the health field or whatever your field is, and seeing what works for them and trying to see how you can make it work for you. And then make like categories, you know, like we had at the time like 5 or 6 different categories of different topics. For example, like weight loss or insulin resistance, things that resonate with PCOS. And then we would put different content ideas into each bucket. And then when we got to filming that day.
Okay, wait. I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah, so I kind of went a little bit advanced, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So no, it's not advanced. That's the conversation we're having. I'm
Yes.
going to slow down
Okay.
and I'm going to break it down into pieces
Let's
right
do
now.
that.
Okay, so you are recording one a day. You realize after a few weeks, not effective. We're going to begin to batch. So when you say we're going to begin to batch, Tallene, what is the conversation that you are having with each other to say, this is how we get organized? Because how organization works for me is probably different than how it works for you, or maybe not. I don't know. What are you saying? What are we getting organized? What, like, literally put yourself back in that and be like, what are we organizing right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it feels like a tornado
Yes.
and you don't even know like what you're organizing.
Yes.
You don't know what your categories are. Like
Yes.
you what are we doing? It's
Yes.
just a mess. I'm consuming, or like, am I consuming too much? Am I not creating enough? Like there's
Okay.
this like
This
mental
is good.
battle.
That's really good.
So what we did together is like really understand what pain points people want to learn something about and create like a list of those.
Okay, pause.
Yeah.
Y'all, did we just hear what happened? They did not go from we need to make content, I'm gonna consume content. It's we need to make content, but what are we about? Like
Right.
what are we talking about? That's the hardest thing, and that's where you started.
Yeah.
Okay, bravo.
Like, you have to like look within, like, who are you trying to help? What are you trying to say to people? Like, what is your thing? Like,
Yep.
what are you doing? Right?
Yeah, what are they asking? What are the
Yeah.
common questions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we sit down, we think like these are the pain points. People with PCOS have insulin resistance. People with PCOS have a bad experience at the doctor's office. This
Okay.
is something people want.
Okay.
Those videos about the doctor's office tend to do really well. So we should make more about that. So we created the buckets.
Okay. How many buckets did you have? I mean, loosely, what
Maybe
you
like
remember?
10, right? I don't know. 10?
Yeah, like 6 to 8. Yeah,
6 to 8, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
no more than 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is really helpful. You guys get to planning out the content. You have somewhere between 6 and 10 buckets. And then you say, next Wednesday is our day.
Right.
But when you say, here's our buckets, what's the lily pad from here's our buckets, next Wednesday we record, then what? What's in that
Yeah.
middle part
Okay.
here?
So there'd be one of us would be in charge of basically organizing what we're gonna film that day. So it's usually me, because like we have different roles. Like she does all of the static posts, and I'll usually plan out the videos. So what I would do is like Wednesday morning, I look at the list of 6 to 8 categories, and then I would pick the ones that we're gonna film that day. Maybe 1 or 2 from each, and then that way everything is ready to go, and there's no like, oh, what do we do? Like, you know, everything's just like ready to get filming at 12 p.m.
Now,
Yeah.
when you say I have everything, and I told you I'm going to get super granular, because
Yes.
people hear this and they're like, okay, but what do I have? Do I have an inspiration link? Do I
Yeah.
have the copy already done? Do I
Yeah.
have like what do I know where I'm filming it in the house? Like
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
on what
Yeah.
looks like your organization for each piece of video?
Yeah, so there'd be like imagine an Excel sheet with different columns, and there's gonna be one with a link of an inspirational post, like a post that inspired us. That could be like, oh, we can make this, we can change this around to make it about PCOS and about what we want, the topic we want to talk about. So we put the inspiration link, and underneath it would be a script, or essentially what we want to say, bullet points. Because a lot of times after a while, you don't have to read a script; you just know the information
Yes.
off the top of your head. So kind of like either short bullet points to give our interpretation of that post, and yeah, basically going from there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Pause. So Tallene, it's Wednesday. And you have how many pieces of content? You have your 6 to 10 buckets, but on a given Wednesday, not now, but then, how many pieces of content were you recording in that day?
So much. Do you
So
remember?
much.
Like 11 or 12.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
12, I think.
Yeah,
it was like
because
our goal.
we would take the TikTok content. What we would do is we would post on TikTok, and if it did well, we'd post it on Instagram. Even though there was no reels
Yeah.
back then, you can still post videos
video.
as a post.
Yes!
So we did that loophole.
Oh, you guys, that's gangster.
Oh yeah,
You guys were early.
Yeah, it was one of the reasons why our Instagram like blew up back then. It still blows up now, but like we kind of got like
A jump
early
start.
in there, a jump start in there
Yes.
before the official reels came out.
Oh.
Yeah.
We made a lot. We were posting like 2-3 videos a day. No?
Oh yeah,
Was it on
TikTok.
TikTok?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would post 3 times a day on TikTok, and then the good ones, like the ones that
The
would
good
do
ones we'd
well,
move.
we would move that
Yeah.
to Instagram. So TikTok was kind of like an experimental ground.
Yeah.
It still is. Like we still treat TikTok as okay, post there first. If it does well, post it on Instagram. And
Okay,
then,
but I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead. What do you guys experience now? Like, do you still feel like TikTok is a good fertile ground of testing, or have you feel like the audiences have shifted and become a little bit more distinct in that people on TikTok want it to look and feel a certain way, and people on Instagram want it to feel a certain way? Or do you feel like the clean testing ground has also parlayed over, oh, it did well on TikTok, it's probably over-indexed to do well on Instagram? Do you feel that it's still the same thing?
Not always, though. It's not always like it did well on TikTok, so it'll do well on Instagram. Sometimes it doesn't do well on TikTok and it does well on Instagram. So
I see what you're saying.
it's
Yeah.
like cooking videos, for example, like sometimes, or I don't know, some of the videos
I
like,
think more personal things.
Yeah,
It feels
personal
that on
things.
Instagram, people like the personality of the person posting more. So if
Right.
they see like
I believe that.
like a certain post that won't do good on TikTok is something of Tallene sharing her the day in her life with more detail. If we put that on Instagram, it'll do much better. I guess,
exactly. Yeah.
and it still resonates to like
Wow.
from back then till now. Consistently is that TikTok we feel isn't as close community as Instagram is. I don't know what that is. Maybe because people scroll way more. People just like binge through content a lot more.
Yes.
Less follows, more just views.
Yes.
I think that translates to not as much of a close community there.
Beautiful. Okay, so now we're going back. You guys are experimenting with this batching 1 day a week, and you guys are doing 12 pieces of content. How long are you doing that and at that frequency? Is that something you guys have kept up since? Is it lessened? What does it look like now in regards to creating content 4.5, 5 years later?
Well, I think we did that for 3 years, right?
Yeah, like about 2-3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we lowered it to 2 posts a day for like a year.
On TikTok?
On Instagram.
On TikTok. Oh, wait, no.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean
sorry.
TikTok. Do you want to know TikTok or Instagram?
Let's talk about both. So how
Okay.
about we contextualize for the watcher and for the
Yeah.
listener? At prior, like 2020, 2021, 3 times on TikTok a day, and on Instagram, a static post, and then whatever videos did well. So
Yeah.
we would generally say 2 to 3 times a day on Instagram.
Yes.
And then 2 years into it, you decrease on TikTok from 3 to 2 a day.
Yeah.
And on Instagram, 2 a day?
No, we stayed at 3.
Okay.
With
Okay.
For a
the
while.
static posts for a while.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then at what point are you at now? What does the cadence and frequency look like? Because the algorithms have changed so much
Yes.
in 4 years.
Yeah.
About 18 months ago, we decided to only post once a day on Instagram, either a reel or a static post. And even just overall, like the weekly content, maybe 6 to 7 pieces of content a week. So that like
On Instagram?
Yeah, on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before it was like 12 to 15 a week.
Okay.
And the reason why is to what you were saying before, like the algorithm has changed. And I also think once an account gets much larger, you don't need to be posting like 3 times a day because that starts to become a little bit spammy. Or maybe not as much value because it's just like a lot of content.
Volume.
Yeah.
So pause here. For somebody who has maybe around the same size, right? For somebody who has somewhere between 3,000 and 8,000, would you still suggest only posting once a day or 3 times a day for that size account?
I would say 3 times a day.
I would say 3.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So why do you guys say that?
Well, go ahead.
I mean, I think at that size, and I still think 3 to 8,000 followers is still very good, but you want to just put as much out there as
Yeah.
possible because that content is the only way you're going to grow. Like doing
Yeah.
once a day is good too, but I think at that point you need 3 times a day to get as much many eyes on you as possible and to help you grow as big as possible.
It also gives you an opportunity to express what you're trying to say better. You're posting 3 times a day. You can
Well, it's good
say
practice.
it 3 different ways. See which
Yeah.
one does well, you know?
Okay, so when you guys are posting 3 times a day on Instagram, how many of those posts a day were video on Instagram?
Two at first.
Yeah, 2 and then 1 static.
So if I do the math correctly and you guys are recording 12 videos on one Wednesday and you're posting 2 videos on Instagram, there's still a gap there, right? Because it's 12 pieces of content and theoretically it would be 14. Am I a mathematician or what?
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Hey.
I mean, we have some nuances. Like Sundays we no posts.
Sundays
and
no
then
posts.
Saturday would be just 1. Just
Exactly.
because of
Sorry.
like...
No, I love this. No, I love
we
this.
thought you
No,
could
listen. I'm already thinking about the YouTube comments.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, the math ain't mathing. I'm just asking all the questions.
No, of course.
No,
Yeah.
but I do the same thing. I actually feel I don't normally. I post once on a weekend. So
Right.
sometimes it's Saturday,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a Sunday. But
Yeah.
yes, I agree. Okay,
We need a boundary. We
Yes,
need to live a
absolutely.
little.
So you guys still have your Wednesday batch days.
Yes.
Has anything changed from the way that you prepare in the past than you have now?
Yeah, I would say like for one thing, we've gone through some pain points in the last year, which is, at some point you're making this same content over and over again.
Yes.
So it
No,
becomes...
can you explain that though? Like when people say that, what do you really mean? Like when you say you're making the same content, explain to me like on 5. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go.
Well, I was gonna say like, because a lot of times you're answering the same questions over and over again, and sometimes you may feel like, okay, I'm answering the same question and the person is watching the same answer over and over again, they're getting bored. But in reality, you have new followers every single day, every single week that wants to hear the same information you talked about a week ago because they weren't following you a week ago. So like, for example, let's say you keep on answering how to lose weight with PCOS. That's something we answer almost every single week. And after a while, it's repetitive because there's no like new magical steps. It's always
It's the same thing.
it's always the first 5 steps are very similar. So after a while, you become... You're not bored of the content. It's just you feel like you're not serving the community as much because you keep doing the same thing over and over again. But in reality, you're actually still serving the community.
Yeah.
It's just that
It's new people.
New people, yeah.
Exactly. Like there's this one bucket that we have, which is a woman with PCOS, her experience at the doctor's office. Typically, when you go to the doctor, when you have PCOS, you're just handed birth control. They don't explain anything. It's a very disappointing experience. So we found that making content around that is really popular on TikTok and Instagram because so many new people who are diagnosed are typing PCOS. And when they see that, they're like, oh my God, that literally happened yesterday. And that's why I'm on Instagram looking for answers. Wow, what a great way to like get someone's attention. But after 5 years of making the same video, saying that same message, you're like, am I still like, are we still saying this? Like, are people still entertained by this piece of content? But the truth is, like Sirak said, like they are, because they're new people. It is still relatable. And what you're doing is like something that someone is understanding and relating to. And that's making them want to read more of your content, watch more of your content.
So if I might add another layer to everything you just said, because I think that what happens is somebody comes up and they hear, well, you have new followers. And for the person who says, no, actually, no, I don't have new followers in a week. Right? That's a lot of people who, they gain like 7 to 10 and then they lose 8 or 9. So they're saying, I don't get new followers. But what I would say, in addition to you will be gaining followers because whoever you lost had already seen your message, but whoever's new has not. In addition to that, only a small percentage of your followers, somewhere between 2 to 2.5%, are actually seeing your content.
Yes.
So Tallene is sitting here talking about the top 5 things to do to lose weight with PCOS, and only 2% of 1 million people actually saw it. So she has to say it again and again and again and again. If her followership doesn't even grow, she has to say it a bunch of times. And so this is like the thing that I really want to like hear again.
Yes.
We have to say the same thing again and again and again. So Tallene, what do you tell yourself? Because I feel the same thing. I was like, I don't know how else to say it. And I've said it. And I, like you, I just feel like I'm the same broken violin on one string. I'm like, what do you tell yourself in those moments of feeling I've said it? I
tell myself if it was easy, then everyone would do it. Like you have to put in the reps, like you have to put in the work. And, it is hard, and I'm not like trying to compare like one to the other, but like our parents are immigrants and like their life was so hard, and like what they had to do to become successful was like unimaginable. And if I have to say like the same thing over and over and make this piece of content 1 million times, it's nothing compared to that. So we just keep pushing. Like it's, you just push it down and keep going,
So talk to me about the content. What do you think? Because I don't know about you guys, but I'll just like be real. I know that there's content that will grow the business and then there's content that will grow my brand. And sometimes there's a crossover, oftentimes there's not. Some people just want to hear from me from like a brand perspective, and then some people want to invest to go deeper. Is there a particular bucket or a piece of content that you see like, oh man, this really moves the needle for the business? Or are you just saying it's just dependent? Like what moves the needle, or is there a commonality of content to business growth?
I think some pieces of content, you don't show the app, you don't show like exactly what you are, show, like, for example, if I'm cooking, I'm going to show myself like scrolling through the app and looking for a recipe. Maybe that will make someone think, that's interesting. Let me go download that app. But then there might be another piece of content where you don't show the app. You don't talk about like what you're selling or anything on the business side. And it's just like relatable content. There's like two different types.
Got it. Okay. So Sirak, if I might ask, if you guys are okay talking about it, my husband and I work together, but we do not create content together. But there have been times where sometimes I feel like he just doesn't understand like what I go through creating content, which sounds, I come from an immigrant family too. So it sounds very like, you don't get what it's like to be in front of the phone.
Yeah.
It's hard, right? And so talk to me about the relationship of creating content. No, there's 99.9% of the people who are watching and listening are not creating content with their partner. Okay. So let's talk about somebody who's creating content alone. I'll get Tallene's perspective prior to you being an on-hand partner. And then the conversations between you and a co-collaborator. I have a co-collaborator now creating content. So that that's going to talk to me and anybody else who has like a marketing team or wants to build with that. So I'm going to ask this same question, but from two different perspectives. Singular, what are like the hard parts, the things that suck, the things that you don't want to talk about?
Yeah.
And then what is it working with a partner when it comes to creating content? Tallene?
Okay, singular, the parts that are hard is like if you don't want to show your face, you can kind of not, like you can back out, right? And you can kind of just, that day I was tired. But when you have a partner and you're committed to something, you have to show up. There's no I'm tired. Like you're both committed and everyone's going to put their best foot forward no matter what. So there's that extra pressure, which I think is a good thing, honestly.
And when it comes to creating the static posts, are you, when I talk about singular, because right now I'm thinking about the person who doesn't have a partner to create. And so have you found that the static post, do they perform as well? Or is they effective? Are you still creating them in the same frequency as you were then when you're posting twice or 2 or 3 times on Instagram? Are they still mix or where are we at now?
Back then, I remember they would get like thousands and thousands of likes because
the static
videos
posts.
weren't, the static posts.
Okay.
Videos weren't as popular back then. It was like new. But now they're not like as popular as they used to be, but I still think they are very important because they can teach something that's really complicated in a very concise way, and someone could bookmark it and save it and it could be really helpful forever.
That's good. That's really good. I mean, I'm taking notes. In my mind, I'm just like, I'm gonna go back to some static carousels. Sirak, so what about when you're co-creating with the partner? What's like an example, a story of like, we're not seeing eye to eye, we're bumping heads. What do we do? Because like we're life partners, we're business partners. With my co-creator, we're not life partners, but we've bumped heads.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we have too. I mean, it's not always like just perfect. There's pros and cons. And when you work together, there's sometimes 2 different mindsets to creating that piece of content. So a lot of times, for example, like I'll have an idea for a video and I'll mention it to Tallene, but of course she's not seeing what I'm seeing in my brain. So then I'll be recording, I'll set the camera up and I'm like, all right, go ahead. And then she'll do it and it'll be like completely different. And I'll be like, all right, what the hell was that? And like, or sometimes it's just, maybe there's a mistake. And of course, like it takes sometimes several, tries to get something right. And sometimes after like 4 or 5 times, I might get frustrated, or she might get frustrated at me being really picky, because I can be really picky too. Like it's both ways. So it's honestly finding common ground and learning about each other's like strengths and weaknesses. Like she knows that I'm really picky, and I also know that sometimes I can be very picky too. So I have to kind of like listen to her. And if she tells me I think this shot is good, I have to just be like sometimes push down what I think and be like, okay, this shot is good. It's like not everything's gonna be the deciding factor, It's what you have is good enough. Just move on. So
can I ask a very highly logistical question?
Yes.
As I would say, would you guys agree that Tallene is what we would call a talent? Like the frontward facing.
For the most part,
For the most part, right? I mean, we can use industry standards. Like this is just what it is. It's like, right? I mean, here's the thing. It's uncomfortable to say that, but at the end of the day, it's what it is. Like sometimes I joke and I'm like, I tell JD, I'm like, sometimes I feel like Seabiscuit. Like it's time for her to race. Let's go. Get the horse ready. And but here's the thing. It's like, gosh, I can talk to you guys about it because it's a thing that very few people can do. And sometimes when you're in that like workhorse, when you are the talent mentality, do you ever feel like you don't understand what it is to be on this side or to run at this? And then at what point, what kind of conversations are you guys having for it's frontward facing and it's mostly me? Does one supersede the other? Or does he say, okay, no problem, but it's you, so let's go?
It's like 50-50, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like sometimes I'm the front-facing talent too. Like we do
I'll,
Instagram lives together.
Them in to do like something fun for TikTok. We do lives together. Our podcast is together. So I don't really like. Do you mean like? Do I ever turn around and say like, you don't know what it feels like? This is
kind
like
of
stressful.
Yeah.
Once in a couple
That
times.
happens sometimes, especially with cooking content. It's exhausting, like having to cook and record and then edit and make sure it's your vision. Blah blah blah. Those pieces of content are very time consuming. So I get frustrated, you know.
And so, I'm sorry, Sirak, please, do you have anything to add to that?
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. I saw you prep up for it, and I was just like, yes, no. So let's go back to when you said to edit it. Who's editing?
Oh,
one of us.
Well, one of us.
It depends. It depends. So
how
like,
do you do? How do you break that up?
Yeah, like so. For example, we have like a combination of like what we call really quick and easy TikToks, where it's like trendy sounds where you just like stand in front of the camera and do it really quickly. You know, like like just 5 to 7 seconds of like quick TikTok videos.
Okay, but explain this for somebody who's so we're native, right? So I'm like, boop, boop, boop. I got you guys, like, right? So when someone's like, what do you mean the native thing? Are we talking about the trending sounds talking over the trending music, the 5 thing? Okay, so.
Yeah, so for example, like imagine the videos where there's like just like only words on screen and it's a 5-second video where you're supposed to read the words on screen. Those are really quick and easy ones where it takes like less than a minute to record. So those ones we can like get them done like within 30 minutes, get like 3 to 4 done, and I'll usually edit those. And then sometimes Tallene will be doing cooking videos, which are a lot more extensive, where she'll have like multiple different scenes, multiple different cuts, and she'll be editing those. But sometimes it takes too long for her too. Like it'll be like an hour to edit one video, at which point we'll like kind of like have a mini argument about we need to delegate this to an editor, you have somebody else do it.
We're working on it. So even though the editor edited it, I didn't like it, so then I spent an hour.
Oh girl, I've been there.
And then he's like, what are you doing? It's 5 o'clock. And then I posted it and then it didn't do well. And then I was like, okay, whatever. Like I did my best. I'll post it on Instagram. At least it's like genuine content that I like. I'm gonna move on from it. And then he'll be like, well, you could have done the intro like this. And then I'll be like, oh, how could you say that?
That's the hard part is like when she works.
Right. Like then you think about it, you're like, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe next time.
Right.
It's one of the hardest parts is when she works really long and like hard on something, and then I don't even want to review it at this point because I'm like, I don't want to hurt her feelings because it's she's worked really hard on it and it's really good, but sometimes it's like that one minor modification to the intro that makes the biggest change. Like, because the intro is the first 3 seconds is super important. So if you don't give the person watching like what they're looking for in the first 3 seconds, the rest of the video unfortunately doesn't matter. I hate that about like short form content, but it's just the truth.
So what are your tips? What are your tips for the first 3 seconds? I mean, based on all of your lessons, you guys have created a freaking ton of content. What advice do you have?
I mean, go for it.
Well, I make the intro 3 seconds where I show, like, let's say what I eat in a day. Like, that's one of the videos I'm working on trying to like streamline and make it good and like understand how to make it so that it's a successful post. Right now, I don't think it's there yet.
Okay.
But the beginning needs to be 3 seconds. And people need to see like one of the meals. It needs to be a simple meal that's appealing and something that the audience understands what it is just by looking at the plate, not like a mishmash of something confusing, right? Like something they're like, oh, I know what that kind of is. So that's kind of relatable. And then they'll be like, I wonder how she makes it. So then they'll continue watching it. And now you've hooked them. And then, for example, the last video I did, I spent too much time, I don't know, like showing other cuts before I got to the point. And I think I just like lost them in the intro. So note to self, next time, cut to the chase, don't show this and that. Go right into the breakfast and like what they want to see in the first place.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat back what I heard and then maybe you can correct me.
Yeah.
So when it comes to intros that are 3 seconds, you want to keep the main point the main point. So you're starting off with the main thing, and how do you convey the main point? Through simplicity, an engaging visual, and intrigue. What does she eat on a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sirak, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's also like something that everybody should get good at with making content is like a powerful hook, a powerful like statement to get the person interested.
Give me examples of a powerful hook and then a powerful statement.
Yeah. So for example, instead of saying breakfast for PCOS, you should say something that kind of touches on what the person's looking for. So 30-minute quick breakfast for PCOS weight loss. It hits different points. It hits 30 minutes because most people want to make breakfast really quickly. It hits PCOS weight loss, which is a big pain point for women with PCOS. And then, it's essentially like breakfast being the first meal of the day.
Quick and easy, or 30 minutes, something like that.
Or like a video that we've done in the past that's done really well is 4 habits. What was it? Sorry.
Which one?
The 4 habits to help you lose weight with PCOS, or?
Yeah, that's like one of the ones that we redo over and over in different ways. Like 4 habits to lose weight with PCOS, or 4 habits that you can stack to lose weight with PCOS.
Is there a reason for 4?
That's a good point. We try not to be like 20, right? You want to do something digestible.
But I'm like,
so
okay, well,
3,
what about 3,
4.
5? Like, is there a number that you feel like somebody's like, oh, this is too much information? Or just 4 happen to be the cadence where you guys start? Okay.
Usually like 5 is the max.
5 is the max,
Yeah, I agree. Okay, this is very helpful and super informative. So as we're here and we're looking at the balance structure between the two of them, and I'm understanding that if you are editing content that could, if you're doing, how many cooking pieces of content are you doing in a week?
1 right now.
So how much time are you spending editing per week?
Well, on that, probably an hour, because I give it to the editor.
Well,
and
right.
then
No,
redo
for
it.
that one piece of content. But are you editing any other content besides your cooking ones?
Typically, he's the one editing after we record.
Okay.
We can record on my phone as well, and then I'll edit it. We kind of like switch off, but it's mainly him that does the editing, and we'll sit down and kind of brainstorm some words together, but
Got it.
he'll work on it.
And so, Sirak, how many hours are you spending a week editing?
Say like 3 to 4 hours, which is too much, but
Well, in a week, I don't know. In a week, I feel like that's a pretty good ROI. If you're going to spend 3 or 4 hours of editing and you have millions of followers, and be like, yeah, I'll do that. Easy.
I think, I think at this point we need some assistance when it comes to editing. So I think that's what you mean by like too much.
Oh yeah, because like sometimes it becomes like as we go throughout our day, creating content, we want to make it the most important thing, but it feels like there's so many other layers to focus on first, especially with our community, our members, like making sure everybody's questions are answered. And then you're like, okay, now I have to make this content for Instagram, but I'm so tired. I have no energy, or for TikTok, I mean like a new piece of content. We're too tired. So we have to, or to edit, we're too tired. So we have to like reprioritize making the content a bit more important or earlier in the day so that we have more energy and creativity for it.
Can I push back on that? Just because like this is us talking about businesses and content. So in order for you to find an editor who's good, they have to create more than you create. You guys are the best at what it is you do.
Oh, I see what
you're not going to find.
Who's that?
You're not going to find. Well, that person exists, but whether or not that person wants to be hired, and whether or not it fits within your financial feasibility, because an editor, like the thing that I discovered, quite honestly, is that the person who can actually capture the content the way it should be, it was somebody who was part of the ideation process. Somebody who gets what you are and what you do, and somebody who's actually there filming it. Like there's so many pieces around the filming, and be like, there's so many nuances to that even if you were to give the editor the best of whatever the 4 takes were just to make it easier for him or her, they still don't get it.
No.
And then you guys have been avid consumers of what it is that you do. So my pushback, just something for you to consider, your 2 cents to throw it away, is keep it. Keep the thing that drains you, but you guys are magical. It's your freaking superpower. And then when you go in, you're like, how are we serving the community? It's like those streamline questions can absolutely, when you train and give a system to a community manager or a couple people in there, they know how to respond.
Yes.
But your community needs to know that you see them, hear them, and care for them. But they don't need to hear every answer directly from you. And so when you have like a group of people supporting people in a layered, streamlined way, the content, which is your superpower, it should remain your superpower. And then when you're less in the community, but you guys are still there, absolutely still there, leading the community, people see you. But to go through and make sure everybody's served well, we can bring support in for that. But then you guys are in your power play. Unless you guys find somebody who is creating at your level, at your consistency, and who understands what it is you do. Because even if you had somebody who's editing viral car content, it's different than cooking. It just is.
Absolutely.
It just is. Oh my gosh. So we're totally geeking out about this, but this is like complete next level. But for somebody who's watching, we're gonna get into the pointing of the business part. Of all the millions of followers, community, what does that parlay into? Like people will often say, like, does it make sense for me to continue to push if, you know, it's a 2% conversion? I don't know what your conversion is. It doesn't actually matter, but people get very frustrated that if they don't have the millions and, you know, 2 or 3% of a following to buy from somebody is different when you have 8,000 followers versus 800,000 followers.
Yeah.
So what are you saying to the person who, what does the conversion look like? How is this ROI? How is this worth it for you guys to be spending this much time to be creating content that points it to the business?
I think if someone is producing content and, you know, feels like this is exhausting, this is draining, and like how many people is it worth me doing this? I think if you get the feedback from your audience where they're loving what you're creating, you're helping people, then maybe if you work on like some of the content you're creating, adjust it a little bit to improve your growth and your like strategy and everything, then maybe you'll be able to get more people to have eyes on your product.
Let me ask a more pointed question. I asked a broad question and I got a broad answer. Okay. It was a perfect answer. Sure. It was a broad question. When did you actually start seeing content move into the membership? Because when you guys started creating the content, you didn't have the membership. Then you create the membership, and now you guys start measuring content. What is actually moving the needle? Is most of your conversion mechanism Instagram or TikTok to the membership, or is it Instagram to TikTok to a sales vehicle of some sort, a challenge, a webinar? What is that? And then over into the membership. Is it straight social membership, or is there an in-between?
There's an in-between.
Yeah.
And just one thing I want to talk about too as well. We feel that like no matter how many followers you have, whether you have like 1 million, 2 million, or 10,000, like.
Or what about the person who has 2,000? Talk to me about the person who has
2,000.
2,000. Okay.
Like we feel the conversion doesn't matter, or not doesn't matter. What I mean is, just because you have more followers doesn't mean your conversion is better.
I agree.
We know so many people like influencers who just have millions of followers, but they don't really have any plans, and they're just
they
not
can't
really doing
build a
much.
business. I get that. Yes.
And
thank you.
So I really think like people who have like a lot less, you'd be surprised. Maybe you're a lot more successful than somebody that you follow who has a much bigger followers.
I agree.
Like it happens in so many cases. And I think in our case, so what we do is we usually have like our content. The ones that really do well that convert to the membership, for example, are the meal plan ones or the cooking ones or the recipe videos. People tend to really like those kinds of videos because it translates to what's on the app. Now, the ones that are more community focused, for example, the pain points, being at the doctor's office, things like that, we look at the data and they don't usually correlate with membership signups or like clicks, but we don't really care too much about that in terms of that piece of content because we want to also build the community, build the trust. Let the people, our followers know that this is just meant for you to relate to. We don't want to sell something to you all the time. Not that we just sell, but you know, we have a membership and it's not like the forefront.
Got it.
This is what you should do.
Yeah.
And like we have a quiz. So we don't go like straight from Instagram to sign up to the membership.
Right.
We want to give someone or the people watching some places to get started with. So we have a quiz completely free and they take it. It's about a 1-minute quiz and helps them find out what their PCOS type could be. And this gives them the next steps as well. Because what we want to do is we want to give someone, maybe they just found us, give them a kickstart that they haven't got from anybody else. Maybe at the doctor's office, or they've been looking for so long and they don't have any like 3 steps to go. So once they take the quiz, they get an email with 3 steps to get started, some actionable steps. And we feel that's more important than just sending an email being like, sign up and get this and that. Because we want to really help the person genuinely. And we feel that's what really translates to like long-term return on investment.
Right.
Not like...
And following that quiz and then understanding what their PCOS type is and the tips, they go through like our nurture sequence, which is essentially like emails that I've written that are genuinely from me, my experience with PCOS, and just, relating to them, and almost like your friend is emailing you, right? Like twice a week for almost 6 months. And so you go through the sequence and it's just, you feel like you're part of something and you're not alone anymore with PCOS.
That's amazing. I love absolutely hearing this. So as we kind of come around, and I want to recap on what we covered. And that was the origin story, how this started solo Tallene, and you worked over the inhibitions by way of action, the things that were stopping you, the mindset blocks by way of action. And then you come along and Sirak comes in and puts gasoline on a fire that already existed. Right? And so not many of us are fortunate to have a partner in this capacity, but we talked about the division of what it is you do. And so what I take from this, not with somebody who's co-creating with my life partner and my business partner, But this is for me to understand I need to get very organized on the front end. And so there's people who are listening and they hear your system. And I just want to take a second to go through my system and cross compare the two. If I understood it correctly, you guys are recording still once a week. Okay, I am recording, but I am recording once or twice a month. And on those days, we are recording somewhere between 12 and 15 TikTok reel style content. But then on the podcast, I am getting 1 to 2 pieces of short form video that is going on in there. And then I will do a personal post, and that's usually hitting me around the 6 posts per week. Now, my buckets, very similar. You guys, our systems are very similar. The buckets
I've been listening to your podcast.
Okay. So tell me my buckets, Tallene. No, I'm just kidding. But like both, like people are going to know business, marketing, personal development, and a little bit. And here's the thing that's kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I'm like, listen, if this is what people tell you, then you have to own it. Like people are just like, I just feel very motivated. And for me, I've never been one for motivation because motivation is fleeting. And I'm more of like action, but if people say, no, I'm motivated, then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to step into that. Like if you feel motivated or you feel inspired to take action, I don't care. I'm going to start creating more of that content. I think that that's been resonating really well. And so in terms of planning out the content, just like you, we have an inspiration link to actually say, how do we make this our own?
Yes.
We will also include the clothes that I need to wear. Is this like casual attire? Is this professional attire? We will also have any other trending sounds, and we also have all of the copy already done. So basically very, very, very close to what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I believe that you guys are doubling the amount of content that is straight from camera than what we're doing, which is the weekly frequency versus my 1 to 2 times a month. But I wanted the listener to say, if you are in the content game, this is the level of organization and consistency that it will require.
100%. Organization plays like a center key in everything.
And so for somebody who hears this and they say, okay, maybe I can't post 2 or 3 times a day, and maybe they're closer to maybe not like me once a day, but this is a person who's posting 3 times a week. I always just say, do as much as you can. As much. So if they say there's 3 times a week, how much time are you guys saying they should be setting aside a month? So a total of 9 posts, 3 posts each week, 12 posts in a month. How much time are they putting aside a day to create this content? If 12 pieces of TikToks or Reels.
I think a TikTok would take at least like 20, 30 minutes.
Okay. So, to record it.
Yeah.
And then how long to edit it?
Well, it would take 20, 30 minutes to record and edit it if it was an easy one, don't you think?
It depends too. So like if say your goal is to create 12 pieces of content for the entire month, you should be spending at least like 2 to 3 hours a week making like each weekly portion of that content. I would imagine that includes like scripting, getting it ready, like what you're gonna say, what you're gonna do, the filming, and then the actual editing. And all the last 2 steps will be much easier and faster if you do the script and all the preparation beforehand. And just doing the research too, because if you look at other accounts, other pieces of content that relate to yours, it's much easier. Like you have to keep doing research and not trying to reinvent the wheel. Even looking at your own posts, sorting by popular, what has done the best for us the last 5 years, we look at that and we say, okay, how can we reword this post or just change a title and say some different information?
Yeah, you're looking at what people want from you. Like, what do people want me to post? Well, let's see what's popular, what's trending. What
on your own account.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you're new,
PCOS hashtag.
And if you're brand new to it, just go to any other account. Like maybe, for example, you're a personal trainer. Find another personal trainer that you like and sort their content by the most popular and see what topics have done really well for them. And I want to be clear, don't copy their content. I'm saying find what topics do well and create your own version of it.
That's right.
And go from there.
That's right. I feel like I very rarely, if at all, on this podcast had the ability to really go deep. My goal is to serve all people across the spectrum, the people who are just trying to get started, but as well as the people who are like, I'm getting serious about my content game. So I recently opened the doors to my mastermind, and it's for 7-figure founders. And the thing that I've seen is that these people have built the most incredible businesses, and they so deeply struggle with their content. And I look at them, and the one thing I beg of them is like, listen, to everybody who has a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So everybody's like, of course Jasmine's gonna say content. And I'm like, right. But as I serve as an advisor to other businesses, and as I even go into businesses that are so outside of my realm, and I'm like, content will change everything.
Yeah.
And they're asking me questions that I thought to myself, you know what I need to do? I need to create a podcast around another content creator, because for me, it sounds like that's a you thing. Who can organize it in that way? Who can spend that much time? Who can justify it? And so to be able to sit literally at a table with people who are doing the dang thing, and we're doing it in very similar ways, it makes me feel very honored and very humbled. I want to say thank you guys. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for inspiring other people. It's so impressive. I feel like invigorated to look at my content game like very differently. But again, 2 cents you didn't deserve. Keep your superpower. The superpower. What you guys have is very magical.
Thank
it
you
really
so much.
Thank you so
And
much.
I take a lot away from what you said too about how you create content like once a month, and I think maybe we can move to doing it once every 2 weeks.
Maybe we should.
Who knows?
We're actually like planning out our year still. You know, it's like January.
Yes.
So we definitely were thinking about batch preparing and like not doing it every single week.
Okay, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. It is like with my co-creator, we ended a batch content day yesterday, and she said, Jasmine, if there was a content Olympics, she's like, let's go. Let's go. Nobody can keep up. And I will say we've built up that resistance. So I will say, dude, I freaking love it. Do it twice in a month. At the end of that day, just make sure that you already have like meal prep done. Cause I'm like, after that day, and I'm like, I couldn't even have any words. I have no words.
Left.
I have, and so the next
you
four,
have to
it's
order food.
organizing all of my clothes, organizing all of the props, having everything in a Notion doc, super organized. But I'm telling you guys, it feels so good to be like, okay, this whole week, I'm not touching content. I have it ready to go.
done.
I'm pulling it out. So that's a big push. So you guys have pushed me. I'm very happy to hear that too. It's like very exciting. But where do people go to just start checking out? Take the quiz. Where are we sending people to?
Yeah. Head over to our website, PCOSweightloss.org, and you can take the quiz and discover what your PCOS type is. And that'll help you get started with managing PCOS.
And a shout out on TikTok and Instagram because people want to be creeping.
Oh yeah, if you want to go to Instagram or TikTok, it's the same username all throughout, PCOS.weightloss. We're also on YouTube. We are on Pinterest. We're on any platform. We're basically on it. You can absorb all the content you want.
Y'all, I said they were gangsters, okay? I mean, we just talked about 2 of all of the platforms they're on. What an honor and a privilege. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for watching and listening to the Jasmine Star Show. If you've taken anything away from this content creation, be sure to tag on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Thank you 1,000 times over. Thank you.